You are comfortably zoned with the Zigzag Man in Alameda, California, pushing on the doors of life marked pull and fighting the unholy trinity as we go. Big business, organized religion, and government.
I am back, and you are comfortably zoned with me, the Zigzag Man, from Alameda, California. And it's Indian summer. What can I tell you? It's a beautiful day, but we're going to get some rain later on. That's what they're telling us, and California needs it. But what me worry? I do podcast radio and talk to interesting people. A lot of interesting people that I talk to just so happen to be from the Heights, Jackson Heights, New York, where I am from. It's amazing. Love to talk sports with them. Love to find out how they're doing. The people I talk to all have a passion. And Donny Markowitz, your passion is music. And you're in Louisiana, having grown up in the Heights. Am I right?
That is true. But I
am in
Jackson Heights, and I am in New Orleans now.
New Orleans, wow. Having grown, see, I grew up where you did. I'm a few years ahead of you. We both went to the same junior high school, Joseph Pulitzer Junior High School, 145 in Queens, and that was the only school I enjoyed until junior college. That I enjoyed going to. I hated PS 148. You went to 69, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
I hated the powerlessness of being a kid, but I really enjoyed the learning years of at Joseph Pulitzer, and I think it was a tremendous middle school, and still exists.
Yeah.
I hope you feel Hope you feel the same way. You went to Stuyvesant High School, which was one of the 3 high schools in New York that where kids just went because they were smart. You didn't have to live near Stuyvesant High School. I lived near Newtown, or relatively close, and went there. But you were smart and went to Stuyvesant. You went to NYU Film School, and what's producing music like in Louisiana? How are you guys coming back from Katrina? I have so many questions to ask you. I know you have something big going on right now. I want you to talk about that. So I'm going to give you the microphone and let you yak a little bit.
All right. Well, let me go back to the day and talk about Jackson Heights a minute, and because it is essential, that's where it all starts.
Absolutely.
And PS 69 was an awesome public school. I can still smell the bake sale of the cookies. It's amazing what kind of memories you have. I can't remember what I did last night, but I can remember the smell of walking up and down the steps at school there, and 145, and playing in the park on 34th Avenue, and I couldn't have had a better childhood.
The wall, we used to play Squacko off that wall during breaks, and at 145.
You played. Go ahead.
And I bet you shopped at Lee's Men's Store.
Yep. Get your jeans over there at Lee's. And,
right on the corner where the theater was, where we graduated, at the Boulevard Theater.
The Boulevard Theater, yep. And my dad, rest his soul, he had a shop on 37th Avenue called the Elk Shop, sold women's clothing. And he named it Eldon after my sister Ellen and me, Donald. So it's the Eldon Shop. And,
oh, wow.
And then we
I didn't know that.
Raja's and Raja's Candy Store. Do you remember Raja's on the corner there on 37th Avenue and around 70?
82nd, was it 82nd Street?
No, it was like about 78th Street, I would say.
You know, I don't. I remember shopping on 82nd Street where the subway is, and are you familiar with it? This will help my dear sister Barbara Burton is trying to get in touch with a woman named Diane Weiss, whose family owned a store on 82nd Street. I thought you might know the name of it, a retail store as well. But I can't think of it because my mind skips here and there. It's been a long time since those years. What's different about living in the South than where you grew up, where we grew up?
You know what?
Intrinsically different?
Similar. The people are great. I mean, I lived in Los Angeles for over 20 years, working in film and television and music and all that out there. And I just got sick of it. My wife and I I'm on my second marriage, and we have little kids. And she's got parents that live in Baton Rouge, which is about an hour outside of New Orleans. So we just said,
right.
The heck with it. We're packing up and moving to New Orleans. I didn't know a soul. But it reminds me a lot about Brooklyn and Queens. It's definitely got a New York vibe to it. Back in the day, not like New York today, but back when we were kids. You know, it's kind of run down but beautiful, and you either love it or hate it down here. But if you like drinking, if you like eating, and you like music, there's no better place on the planet than New Orleans. I mean, and you
produce the music. You produce. What have you produced? Tell me and our audience what you're most proud of producing over the years, especially in New Orleans.
My claim to fame is that I co-wrote the song "I Had the Time of My Life" from Dirty Dancing, where I won an Oscar and a Golden Globe and got a Grammy nomination, and that's been a wonderful experience from the movie Dirty Dancing. But down here in Louisiana, I just did a record with a guy named Bobby Rush, who's an old blues guy from Jackson, Mississippi, and we got Dr. John on the record, and we wrote a song called Another Murder in New Orleans, which is about trying to get peace down here, and it's been nominated for a Blues Blast Award for Best Song of the Year and Best Album of the Year, and on the 23rd of October, we'll find out if we win or not, but I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud of that.
As well you should be. Oh, I'm tingling, man. You won an Oscar. So what's it like the next morning, you're home, sitting in your living room or wherever, and you're holding an Oscar? Is it anticlimactic? Is it, you know what I'm saying? Do you think, wow, how am I going to top this?
Well, I've been working my way down ever since. You know, I started at the top and working my way down, but I found a nice level where everything is kind of cool and I'm doing some good work. And you know, the way that I view the Oscar itself is that it's an American iconic object. And so
right.
I love when people come in and see it and hold it, and I teach classes every now and then, and I bring it with me, and I love the kids to come up and hold it and make a speech, and everybody gets such a kick out of doing that. And you know, from a science experiment, I would say out of maybe 1,000 people that have held it, and I've never cleaned it because I want to keep everybody that's ever held it energy on it. Even my little nephew bit it, and there's a little chip at the top of it, you know, that people say, wow, this is heavy. And whenever somebody picks it up and doesn't say that, it's like a bell goes off and say, wow, how weird is that? they're one of maybe 5 people out of 1,000 that didn't say, this is really heavy, you know? But everybody gets out of it. I'll show up at hospitals with it and walk around. It's you know, it's an iconic American object. I feel like I'm just guarding it, you know, or not guarding it, but sort of, you know, watching it. And I love sharing it with people. And they get it brings smiles to so many people, you know. And that's the coolest part of it, you know. That's the coolest part of it.
Well, that's a great answer. No less an answer would I expect from a Heitzman. You never forget the people you grow up with. Who did you grow up with, and what did you do? I got to go back to the Heights when talking to you because who did you grow up with, and what did you do? Some weird stuff where you thought, oh man, this is great.
Okay.
Growing up.
I'll list some names, and thank God to Facebook because I reconnected with a bunch of people that I grew up with in Jackson Heights, and I call
me too, man. Yeah.
I call them my grandmas because a bunch of them are grandmas now, and they're my band supporters and friends, and Mimi Jerome Krumholtz. Every time I put something on Facebook, she's the first one to put a like and say a nice thing. She's one. Gary Uffner, John Abramson, Adele Rossinger. I mean, there's just so many of them. Jane Cass, who was we were in public school, in PS 69 together, and I think 145, she's now the editor of NCIS New Orleans, coincidentally, which is doing...
Oh, wow. Wow. Did you reconnect that way?
Yeah, we reconnected through Facebook.
Beautiful. Beautiful. People either love Facebook or hate Facebook. I love it. So I have camp blogs that I go back to, my summer camp, Kid at Senior Camp, by the way, if anybody's out there. And neighborhood, sports. You grew up a Yankee or a Met fan. You had to be one or the other. You couldn't be both.
Well, I grew up a Met fan, and then when I got older and moved to Manhattan, I became a Yankee fan. But in my heart, I'm always a Met fan.
Okay.
And here's another really cool story from down here. I got to tell you, being a Met, you're a Met fan, right?
Yeah.
So I go to this party at this friend of my wife's house, some business thing. Who's there but Ron Swoboda?
Whoa, Rocky.
Remember Ron Swoboda?
Yeah, he was Rocky Swoboda. That's what they called him. That was his nickname.
From the 69 Mets, and he made that amazing catch in the World Series and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. He was terrific.
So I meet Ron Swoboda, and it's like meeting, one of the Beatles as far as I'm concerned. Ron Swoboda, oh, man, he was a hero of mine. And so I told him this story. I got bar mitzvahed in 1967. And my parents asked me, not that I really had much say in it, but they said, where do you want to get bar mitzvahed? And I said, I want to get bar mitzvahed at the Travelers Inn by LaGuardia Airport. Do you remember that place?
Oh, absolutely. I live very close to there. I lived on 91st Street and between Northern and 32nd. We'd take our bike ride down to the airport, Travelers Inn. The teams would come in and stay at the Travelers Inn, as a matter of fact.
The Mets would stay there, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Part of the deal with having an affair at the Travelers Inn, a bar mitzvah, was that if the Mets were in town, they would guarantee you 2 tickets to a Mets game, and one of the Mets would come down to your bar mitzvah and say hi. So I said, that's where
It's very spiritual. That's how the old rabbis would have preferred it. In Minsk, I'm sure there's a rabbi going, and I'm a mitzvah and a girl, you came in with a schwarze.
Oh, let me get our mitzvah that the travel is in, because the Met will come down. So
who came in?
There, and you know who the Met was that came down? Greg Goose. Remember him? He was the third string catcher for the Mets.
Okay, what year?
Down, and he was still a Met, and he signed autographs and all that. And then they give you a couple of tickets.
What was his name? I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
What?
What? Do you remember his name?
Yeah, Greg Goosen.
Oh, okay. That's the name that either I'm not hearing correctly or that went by me. But yeah, he was a Met. What the hell? Very well.
He was a third string catcher, but he came.
Yeah. Greg Goosen, you say?
Greg Goosen.
Did you say? Pardon me?
Greg Goosen.
Yes, and there's a very, very famous quote from Casey Stengel when Greg Goosen came up. He said, "This is a 20-year-old kid who in 10 years has a chance to be 30. So that was the guy. He never really made. He had great potential, but Casey saw what potential was all about, and he never really did make it good. But hell, he played in the big leagues. If you played in the big leagues, if you played in the minor leagues, I admire you. So let alone the big leagues.
Yeah.
So, hey, great talking to you.
We got two tickets, and I was hoping that they would be, behind the dugout. They were in the mezzanine, which is fine, but, when you used to sitting in the grandstand, that was pretty cool.
Right. Well, I got to pick this moment to tell you and remind the listening audience who's probably heard this story 80 times from me. I played hooky from high school to go to opening day at Shea Stadium when they opened Shea Stadium in 1964. And you mentioned grandstands. I sat up in the upper grandstand with 18 other Heitzmen who all did the same thing. We all got together and sat up in the same seats. So there's something about the Mets that will never leave my heart, and that's pretty cool. So I'm glad you told me those good things about Louisiana, because I don't have much of an affinity for the South in general, for a lot of reasons, and I'm glad we seem to be coming back a little bit from Katrina too.
No, we've come back a lot from Katrina. It's one of the there's a number of things. Now, New Orleans is different from Louisiana. It's like the East Village back in the day, saying that was New York State. So New Orleans, we call it the northernmost Caribbean island. And it's pretty third world in a lot of ways, but it is fun as hell. The people are awesome, and outside of New Orleans, it gets Crackerland and all that kind of stuff, and and things like officer, I was just pushing the sheep over the fence kind of people, but it's you said you work with Dr. John. He lives in New Orleans. What's he like? We both had brain salad surgery at one time or another in our lives. So I have great love for Dr. John's music, as you can imagine. Dr. John is what he calls a character. a character. He uses his own language. When I first got to know him and I talked to him on the phone, I could understand like 30% of what he was saying. And then as we became friends over the past couple of years, I'm up to like 70%. And just last week, he's like a grandpa figure to me. Even though he's not that much older than me, but it's still, he's like, I'll drive out to his house. He lives on the North Shore on the other side of the lake. It's about a half hour away, just to do errands. He doesn't drive, but it's worth it for the stories and the language. And he is just an amazing guy. He's lived an amazing life. He's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, as he should be. And
right.
He's an incredible musician. He just did a great album. His interpretations of a bunch of old Louis Armstrong tunes that's kicking butt on the charts. So you should.
Oh man, I'd love to hear that.
It's great record.
Did you ever, when you were in the Heights, did you ever get to go to Corona and go to the Louis Armstrong Museum?
Yeah.
Oh, me too. I went back to visit, and I have a nice picture of myself. What wouldn't be a nice picture of myself? I'm thinking the narcissist that I am, in front of the brick wall with the plaque on it, right in front of the Louis Armstrong Museum. He grew up or spent a lot of his years on 104th Street in Corona, and.
Yeah.
We had a great neighborhood. We just had a great place to grow up. We were 20 minutes by subway away from downtown New York, Manhattan. It's just terrific.
Yeah, I agree.
And you've been terrific. Would you someday come back and honor me again?
Absolutely.
Oh, that's good. I wanted to hear that, but that makes me feel good, and I can tell you had fun, which is what most of the people, if not all, 99% of the people that come on here, just have a fun time yakking. That's all it's about.
Yeah,
I'm going to put this up
anytime you want.
Oh, beautiful. You know the number, and thanks, Donny. I'm going to end the show. I'm going to end the segment the way I end every segment, and I implore you and everybody that hears this to keep your dreams wet and your humor dry, keep your kids out of military recruiting stations and off the laps of clerics wearing dresses, and keep on keeping on. Thanks again, Donny, man.
You are a brother. Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Heights it is. See you later.
It is. All right, pal. Bye-bye.
Oh, bye.